Hi everyone, and welcome to the TechNet Show. We are going to be talking about quite a decent amount of stuff today. So let's get into this news already.
Let's just jump into it.
Anyway, for our first bit of news, well, before we even get on to our first bit of news, let's talk about M1 one more time. So it's coming out tomorrow or today, depending on when we release this. Big Sur was released this week. It came out beta, it's out in the wild, and it's very impressive because they redid the entire OS visually. I think that's pretty crazy that they're able to do in just a single generation.
Crazy to think about. It's not just like an incremental leap. No, they're just straight up just everything's different.
Well, a lot of behind the hood type things as well, because as we all know, it needs to be optimized for ARM. So there's that too. So there were other things that they changed, like having the control center, like in the iPhone. You have your normal Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, display settings in there, like the iPhone. The dock has been redesigned. The icons look more like the iPhone.
I can't help but feel like I'm sensing a trend.
Like the entire OS became more iPhoneified. It's looking pretty good in my opinion. I think that'll make the transition a lot easier when people go from their phones to their laptops to their tablets. You don't have to think about like different icons and stuff like that. I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah. They're really taking the time to really bridge together, to really unify this like walled garden ecosystem that they have. I can't argue with that. I mean, if everything's your own thing, why not just make it all seamlessly come together?
Anyway, let's talk about the unfortunate side of this. So there were a lot of people downloading Big Sur on launch day, which unfortunately caused Apple's authentication servers to crash, which wouldn't be that bad until you think about the fact that people can't open non-Apple apps without the authentication server. So Gatekeeper is a function that allows Apple to make sure that malware doesn't get on your computer. It's basically requires all apps to be signed by Apple to be launched on your computer, unless you want to go through a really weird process of enabling other apps. But you need the signature basically, and that signature is checked on a database in Apple side, and that database decided to die for a bit because of the volume, and people couldn't open their non-Apple apps for a good hour, which sucks, to say the least. I personally experienced that. I was freaking out and I had no idea what was wrong, and it's not a good feeling.
Yeah, I can imagine. I haven't experienced it myself, but yeah, to suddenly find out that all my I'm assuming a good amount of the apps that I use are non-Apple apps, so to just suddenly find out that they're not working out of the blue, I probably lose it. I'm not able to keep my composure at that. That would freak me out.
Yeah, I genuinely thought that was a problem with the computer at first, but apparently it wasn't. Well, thankfully it wasn't. Maybe I hope that Apple learns a bit from this. Maybe change up their authentication system a bit to time out, perhaps.
I never know with Apple sometimes.
Well, let's go back to something a bit nicer. So, hopefully you guys know about the Oculus Quest. If you don't, it's a standalone VR device that allows you to play VR without having a computer. I've always found that to be a very fascinating thing, and it's an incredible experience. The graphics aren't that great, but the fact that you're not tethered to a computer and are able to move freely throughout a room makes the experience so much better in my opinion. This device has had an update. It added 90 Hz support for games, so that allows you to connect to your computer at 90 Hz, use it as a regular VR device like your standard VR devices, and play games at 90 Hz. That's pretty exciting because it used to be 72 Hz. They promised this update. I was expecting it a lot later. Yeah, I'm happy it came out now.
It's a solid update. yeah, it must be, if it's already crazy to experience it at 72 hertz, to feel it at 90 must really help with the, I'm assuming it helps greatly with the immersion, or at the very least to help prevent, I'm assuming
Motion sickness.
Yeah.
Okay, so have you ever experienced VR, Jared?
Very little bit, but I've never, never at the level of like an Oculus Quest device or like a Vive device.
It's weird. Like, I once played like a roller coaster game where you were supposed to like shoot the targets while on a roller coaster. I almost fell over.
Oh shoot.
It's weird. It's like your body expects something to happen, and you kind of move to, I guess, cancel the inertia out.
No, yeah, you're trying to compensate for something that's not actually there.
That's weird. It's like something's not making sense and doesn't line up properly. But yeah, it's a pretty good experience. I like it.
VR always sounds like a very interesting experience, and honestly, I wouldn't mind diving more into it. Maybe I might invest in the future. I don't know.
Anyway, you want to talk about the next topic, Jared?
Sure. So, switching gears on this virtual reality roller coaster, back down to some unfortunate news today. We've got some news out of Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Watch Dogs Legion, in the form of certain people have been commenting on Ubisoft forums and on Reddit as well that people are having trouble accessing their save games. From what it sounds like, the games itself would claim that the data for their save game has been corrupted and essentially inaccessible. And in case you're, I don't know, in console war mode and about to point out like, oh, is this happening to Xbox players? Is this happening to PlayStation players? Or you want to pull your PC Master Race card? That doesn't work here because this is an issue that's apparently not platform specific. So if you have this game on PlayStation 5, or if you have a PlayStation 5, or your Xbox Series X, if you have it, or if you're playing this on your PC, hate to tell you, it could happen.
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate. I mean, I know that we complain a lot about games being delayed, but then there's issues like this that crop up that's like, really, guys? I mean, it's not like you couldn't have found these issues in QC, but still, I mean, this is a pretty bad issue. I could imagine how frustrated these players are if you put hours and hours into these games. I mean, during this pandemic crisis, what are you really doing these days? Playing a lot of games, working from home, playing more games. I can imagine that a lot of players racked up a good number of hours and could have just had their game's data just wiped on them.
Yeah, you're just, taking a moment to just, sit back, not have to worry about everything that's going on with the pandemic, not have to worry about everything going on with work and everything. Just have that moment to sit down, play a video game or play Assassin's Creed or play Watch Dogs. And this is just an unfortunate, unnecessary amount of extra stress, really.
Ubisoft has had an interesting record of bad games.
They have.
I'm pretty sure that you guys have remembered a game called Assassin's Creed Unity in the past that they completely rushed. I mean, Unity itself was a fantastic game. The gameplay was amazing. The issue was the bugs.
Yeah. It was a great game when it worked.
When you're not falling through roofs. I mean, you're supposed to be falling off of roofs. That's what I expect from Assassin's Creed, and you dying in the worst possible ways. I don't expect to be falling through them.
I'm okay with falling to my death on the floor. I'm not okay with infinitely falling through the floor. Also, side note, it's very interesting that, they're having major problems once again at another new generation of consoles. It seems to follow them a lot.
Yeah, honestly, I think that just shows that it might be a good thing that Cyberpunk is just taking forever to come out. I mean, if they are able to release a game without bugs, I will be incredibly happy.
That would be nice. That's an unfortunate bar, but agreed.
Well,
If they
I mean,
can release it,
obviously, I'm not saying like without bugs, period. I'm really just don't want game-breaking bugs.
no, yeah, or save
Like falling through floors.
or losing your save file. In any event, we can go ahead and continue on our roller coaster. Hope you're not feeling motion sickness yet, because we're going up again, kind of, sort of. Well, now we're in speculation territory. Everything's up in the air. Hopefully the roller coaster's not in the air, but nonetheless. So today we'll be talking about Samsung, some spec leaks for their upcoming Galaxy, either their S21 or their S30, depending on whether they want to park on the 20 series or if they're going to continue up to 100 at a very rapid pace. So these claims come from the source Android Police. Well, and since these are, spec leaks, definitely take these with a grain of salt. But
You mean with a bag of salt?
yes, a very big bag of salt. Don't consume the salt. Carry it with you. But essentially, one of probably the biggest thing to note is some interesting specs regarding the Ultra line of the S21 or the S30 line, which will reportedly use a battery-saving LTPO display, which is a display that's similarly used in the Note 20 Ultra, as well as apparently S Pen support and allegedly an eye-searing 1600 nit peak brightness.
1600 is pretty bright. I don't think that many TVs even get up to that brightness.
Yeah, that is an insane level of brightness. I don't know about that one, but I don't know. It is Samsung. They pull some weird stuff sometimes.
I wonder how fast it's going to drain battery. Sure, it's a new technology display, but 1600 nits is still 1600 nits.
It's either got to be some revolutionary type of screen, or most likely 1600 nits is just the high ballpark. I'm assuming it's...
Yeah, it's possible that's literally just only able to display it for a few seconds. For their momentary flashes.
No, yeah. To just really catch your attention, just light up the room for like 1 second.
Might be sustained, might be peak.
But otherwise, if we're looking at other specs, it's more along the lines of what you would expect. Was it everything's expected to either pack the Snapdragon 875 or supposedly the unannounced Exynos 2100 in certain countries. Cameras, for the most part, at least in the regular S21, seems to be pretty much the same in terms of megapixels. Although the Ultra does look like it's getting a second gen 108 megapixel sensor. That's a thing. Oh, and looks like Galaxies will be getting 4K 60 frames per second videos across all their cameras, as well as 8K at 30 FPS. And supposedly they would also carry over the ultra wideband from the Note 20, as well as Wi-Fi 6E on the Ultra model. I'm assuming from what I'm looking at, it's mostly par for the course in terms of a next gen boost.
Yeah, it sounds pretty great. I really hope that Samsung's able to get their next Exynos chip down. It would be weird if they outperform Snapdragon, but I have my hopes that one day Samsung will get good at chip making and we'll have another competitor on the field.
Oh, yeah. One could hope. Supposedly, they're saying the 2100 is on par or better than the Snapdragon.
I feel like Qualcomm has gotten pretty stagnant with their chipsets. I mean, while Apple has been making generation on generation improvement, Qualcomm has been giving us more or less the same.
I don't recall the last time I've ever actually felt any form of excitement hearing about the next Snapdragon. In fact, I don't recall ever actually paying attention to what number we were on the Snapdragon.
I mean, Apple's been making leaps and strides in ARM technology, but Qualcomm has been kind of sticking more with what ARM has been giving them. I really hope that Samsung is able to give them some competition to improve.
Give them the AMD Ryzen treatment.
Yes.
I didn't think we'd be seeing this so soon, but I'm okay with it.
Talking about CPUs, let's talk about Amazon. Amazon has their own silicon, as I think that I mentioned in an earlier news video, but this time it's for their server side stuff. So they are going to start using these new silicon chips instead of NVIDIA GPU chips for their Alexa voice recognition and for other people's voice recognition that they run on there inside of AWS. Honestly, their claims are pretty reasonable. They're basically saying it's cheaper and more performance. I mean, isn't that basically what building your own thing does? Makes it cheaper and it's better for whatever you use it for.
Basic par for the course for the fine, I'll do it myself tactic.
That's basically all the claims they make. There's nothing really exciting about it, but for you AWS users out there, you might be able to utilize this and maybe pay a bit less in the process.
That'd be pretty nice. Or it'll set at the same and then they'll just, make a little extra bank on Amazon's end.
Oh, actually, they do say that's about 30% cheaper for end users. Well, not end users, I mean AWS.
AWS developers. So good news.
Well, if you choose to use that chipset. Obviously, they still have the NVIDIA GPUs if you wanted. But for the neural networking stuff, they're saying that you get the same performance, but it costs less.
Didn't Amazon get in trouble for doing that at one point? And not in terms of neural networks, but, like seeing a product that's getting like higher and higher demand and then making their own thing to compete with it.
Well, I mean, that would be... I think that they did that in the Amazon Basics, but at the same time, NVIDIA GPUs cost a lot of money.
That is true. I guess this is a good case. It saves everyone a bit of money.
Except for NVIDIA. I could imagine that Amazon's a pretty big customer for them.
Oh, yeah. They're probably not going to enjoy this. Kind of find it interesting how companies are jumping into or trying to make everything all in-house.
Yeah, I mean, okay, Microsoft's half doing that. They're making an in-house processor chip with Qualcomm, partnering with them, but I can tell that they're not really going anywhere with that.
Yeah. R.I.P.
You want to take the last one?
Sure. Actually, perfect. Speaking of Qualcomm, the U.S. kind of still has its little ban over the ever popular company Huawei, but Qualcomm has actually managed to gain permission to sell some stuff, or has essentially given permission to do business with Huawei. So essentially, Qualcomm has confirmed to the source Reuters that it has received government permission to sell 4G phone chips to Huawei. So ultimately, they didn't actually specify which chips they were, although it is worth noting that since they do mention 4G chips, obviously we're not looking at, all the high-end stuff that's 5G capable. So one thing they do note is that most likely, since Huawei has primarily used their own things for their higher-end phones, and originally Qualcomm Snapdragons were used for Huawei's budget models, they're most likely, trying to capitalize on being Huawei's like budget-friendly chipset once again.
Yeah, but there's something very unfortunate about this. I think that there was an earlier news article about Huawei running out of chips to sell.
Yeah, I think I see them.
So even at that, they're also running out of their high-end chips. So their Kirin stuff. I think that they mentioned that Kirin might not be able to exist in the future because of the US ban.
I'm guessing from that, and even though Qualcomm is able to at least give their budget-friendly Snapdragon chips, the fact that Huawei is unable to meet the demand for their high-end chips, from that I'm assuming we're in a bit of trouble.
Always been in a bit of trouble for a long time now, especially after Google.
No, yeah.
That was a huge thing. I can't believe that they called their way back up for a while, at least.
No, yeah. They had some interesting things going, I guess, but I guess the long run's starting to hit them.
It's pretty unfortunate. I really was looking forward to having another, company in the game. Pushing Samsung, pushing Apple.
It could have been them, but U.S. government came in and
Yeah. So, speaking of sad endings, it's time to end this episode. I know that you're all sad about it, and we're sorry, but that's all the news we have.
Oh, man.
So, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment down below what you guys think, and we will see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.
See ya.